So, we are on our way with another rant, debate, discussion. Sorry. Yeah, call it whatever. But I wanted to discuss about another, pet peeve, I should say, of mine when it comes to how people adjust their guitars. And in this particular case, I want to discuss about the bridge and its function and the saddles and how these things have different roles depending on what type of bridge you have and how to correctly set it up for a change. And also I decided to use my monitors not just for displaying cute stuff behind, but I also wanted to use them for relevant things, both for saving some editing time, but also for being a bit more practical for you guys so that I can show exact portions of the image, because if I just overlay it on the screen, it's a bit harder to do this. Yeah, the image will look better, but I cannot show different things. So I'll just give it a try. Let's ignore this for now because it's a picture of a telly and we'll get to it. What I first wanted to discuss was the idea that, as you probably know, the neck, like if you're taking your guitar and if you're just looking at your neck, let's try not to damage my monitors, from this from this position, like with this angle, you will see that your neck has a radius. All of you should know this by now. You have the 7, 25, the 9s, 9.5, 10, 10.5, 12, 16, 20. Some guitars are flat, like the classicals, or even some other ones have some exceptions. Some of them have compound radius, whatever. But because of the radius that they have, you will always be obliged to account for this radius in two places. One of these places is the nut, the other place is the bridge. So, having that said, you have to match the crown, the radius of this group of saddles right here, and also you have to match the radius of these nut slots so that they match with the radius of your fingerboard and consequently frets, because that's what you use to play, unless you have a fretless guitar. But here's the thing: when you're trying to adjust, and I'm talking now about the saddles, we're only going to talk about the saddles now. So when you're trying to adjust 6 individual pieces so that they kind of emulate a certain round pattern, like a crown, like an arc or something. Obviously, it's like digitizing a continuous shape with just a few points. In our case, 6, or if you have 7 string guitars, 8, 9, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you have 4 strings or 5 strings for your bass, ukulele, same principle applies. But it's a very finite number of points that you have to use for approximating this curvature, right? So, that being said, if you look at the strings as in this example here, or just like I showed you, if you just look at a string going this way, essentially it's just a glorified point. It should be a point, but it's obviously not, because it has its thickness, and strings have gauges, right? So they're physical, therefore they have that physical dimension as well. But they're pretty much like a point traversing back and forth. So, because of this, if you have the individual piece, in our case the saddle, that holds the string going this way towards the camera, and this is the saddle, just like it's right here depicted on the screen. If you have it here and the string is just traversing along the saddle, in theory, you might argue that no matter how the saddle gets, its angle, no matter how you incline the saddle, as long as the string has its level the same. I mean, as long as you keep the string at the same level, doesn't matter if you skew your saddles just a little bit, because eventually the 6 points that describe the curvature of the fingerboard are going to be at the same spot. So the crown, the curvature is still going to be respected. Yes and no. From a theoretical point of view, yes, but in actuality, from a practical sense of how things work and what side effects things can have in the physical realm, things are not like that. And let me explain. So, when you have a guitar like this, with a Floyd Rose, your saddles, first of all, cannot be tilted like this because they do not have double screws on the left and right side, so that you can play with the height of the screws and therefore tilt. So this is done by design because each saddle actually has its own unique height. If you haven't noticed this already, next time you dismantle your Floyd Rose, you can turn the saddles upside down, and you can see the fact that they have some numbers on them. That's the position. So usually you have like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, because that shows you, the relative position. So you have the first, then the second going a bit higher, then the third a bit higher, the third at the same spot, then the second going lower than the first. So they pretty much factory set your curvature to a predefined level, and it's a very good thing that they do this, and it's a very good thing that you cannot change it. But also you have to be careful when you mix and match things. So if you have a fingerboard with a different radius than the one given by your locking trim, you'll have a problem. So you should always make sure that they're matching if you're building your own guitar. But here's the thing, with a guitar like this, you cannot adjust the curvature individually. Also, you cannot adjust, obviously you cannot adjust the saddles going up and down individually. The only thing that you can adjust is by using these two studs, posts, pivots, whatever. You can just either rise up the. You can raise the level of the tremolo bridge so that you can play with the action, and you can tilt it overall, slightly towards the left or towards the right. But with a tremolo system that's more like the vintage, more like the Fender type of tremolo system, things change because those systems have this two screw mechanism that allow for the saddle piece to be adjusted not only individually but also individually left to right. So the saddle itself does not just have one screw that dictates the up and down level. You can pretty much play with each saddle just the way I showed you here for the whole bridge. So you can play left and right, skewing things from one side to the other. Theoretically, that gives a lot of freedom, that gives a lot of flexibility and whatnot. But here's the thing: if your saddle has that small groove, that notch inside, right across the middle where the string passes through, you might get away with the fact that your saddle is not completely straight. But if you don't have that thing and you skew your saddle, you're in some trouble, and I'll tell you why. So again, going back to our idea that the saddles need to correctly fit the crown or the curvature of the fingerboard. Yes, they do have to do this, but the saddle itself should not try to fit the curvature. Only its height should try to do this. So in other words, you want to have like this staircase effect with the stairs, with the steps themselves, the stairs, being just like with normal regular stairs, flat and perfectly horizontal, parallel to the guitar body or to the bridge plate. Why, you might be asking? Because if we're giving this round effect, why give it in a discrete manner like this, which looks like a very bad digital approximation? Why not do it a bit more continuous so that the saddle itself can be like the first saddle can be like this, then the second one a bit more straight, then the top one even straighter, and you then follow off in the opposite direction. Here's the thing. Again, if you don't have that groove, that notch, keeping your string in place, when you tilt your saddle, for example, if you have bent steel saddles like in the vintage models for Fender, where this groove does not exist, your string, the more you tilt your saddle, your string, the more you tilt the saddle, the more your string will have a tendency to slip towards the downwards portion. So if you're on this side, it's going to slip like this. If you're on this side, it's going to slip like that. And especially when you're bending and doing all those crazy things, because you don't have the groove, the notch that keeps the string in place, those things will start going left and right, and eventually this will affect the string spacing, and it will no longer be uniform. It's going to be non-uniform. So that's something that's inherently dating back from the Telecaster age, and that brings us to the to this picture right here. So the Telecaster was the first electric guitar produced by Fender, in this sort of era that we got to know it. It sort of precedes the Stratocaster model, and with the Telecaster model, traditionally you have, instead of 6 saddles, you have 3 saddles. So what happens is that each pair of strings, so each adjacent 2 strings, share the same saddle. In that case, because you still have to correctly match the curvature, it's impossible for you not to tilt the saddles. And obviously, this also limits things a bit, because you can no longer adjust each saddle individually to correct whatever might need it to be corrected. Non-uniform things in the frets, whatever, but still you should not correct that from the saddle. You should make sure you have a decent fret job and whatever. But still, the Telecaster has this problem, because traditionally it used to be constructed like this. Nowadays you can also get Telecaster bridges with 6 individual saddles, no problem. But the traditional version is still found like this, with 3 independent saddles. And the idea is that here you see what I was talking about. You have the individual saddles. You have them tilted one way or the other to accommodate for this curvature, which normally dictates the problems that I mentioned before. Your strings will start going left and right. Luckily, as time evolved, and as they still didn't quite want to change this vintage traditional style, and they still wanted to keep it, apart from the cases where you have 6 individual saddles. But for these, still they made some improvements, and they started putting in those grooves, those notches that I was talking about. So in this case, here we can see that we have some sorry, not on this screen. So yeah, let me go back here. So here you can start seeing these notches. So I'm like zooming in super big, but you can see what I'm talking about. So we have these notches right here. that are keeping the string in place. So although it has its limitations with not being able to individually correct the things for each string, still, when you do it like this, at least the string does not slip. But here's the thing. If we go, let me see. So if we go here, you will see that those grooves do not exist. This is a really standard, vintage style type of bridge and saddle, and you already can see that the strings are no longer in the correct position. Let's say this one is far away from the screw hole, while this one already overlaps. And yeah, this is one of the problems that I was talking about. So obviously putting the grooves in helps, and also you can have like grooves everywhere so that you can play with the string spacing if you so wish to. And this is actually just a threaded screw, just put horizontally like this. So yeah, that's what I wanted to discuss about. Do not tilt your individual saddles if you don't have to. So with a strap, bridge, it's moronic to do so. And also, if you have like a modern version of a strap tremolo system, where you again have the fulcrum points that allow for the bridge to go up and down, but the saddles also can adjust individually up and down. Make sure you understand the role of each of these settings, because you should make sure that the saddles correctly describe the curvature of the fretboard, but you should no longer play excessively with the height difference as an overall offset, because you can actually correct this from the bridge itself with those two posts. But again, also you don't want to use this excessively, because the two posts should be at the height that correctly corresponds to what you want to do in terms of the floating aspect of the tremolo. So it should give you enough of a leeway up and down versus the guitar body, so that you can do your up up bar dives or whatever, and the downwards, the dive bombs and stuff like that. The usual two-way action of the tremolo system with a bar, right? So keep that in mind also. So you have to realize what each of those screws are actually doing, and what they're meant for and what they're not meant for, even more importantly. So please keep your saddles straight, unless you're completely obliged to make them like this, like on the Telecaster. If you are obliged to do this, make sure at least you have the grooves in. If you don't have them and you don't want to do any of these, it's not a problem. But I'm just trying to educate people who might have no preference, but also they don't know where certain problems come from. So in this case, you can be a bit more informed. And like I said, with the modern version of the vintage tremolo, where you have the two posts instead of the 6 individual screws, again, you have like the individual adjustment for the saddles, but those 2 screws for each saddle are kind of like a good and bad design, because ideally you just need one so that you can just go up and down, not sideways, and tilt the saddle. But those 2 screws are put there for stability, so make sure you always raise them up at the same level so that they're parallel and not like this. Don't play with the saddles too much, because you also have the 2 pivots that should heighten or lower the trem plate accordingly. But also vice versa, like I said, that also affects the amount of leeway, the amount of headroom you have with your dive bombs and whatnot. So that was it. My rant is pretty much over. Just one mention at the very end: when you're doing this on a tremolo bridge, like the Fender style bridge, make sure that you do so in such a way where you realize what the correct order between the action adjustment and the angle adjustment from the springs in the back of the guitar, with the back plate. Make sure you understand the order of the settings there, because if you correctly adjust your action and then you proceed with adjusting your bridges, angle right here, you completely mess up the action. So try to first put the angle where you want to, not on a guitar like this with a Floyd, because here, unless you have certain specific preferences, you should pretty much keep it parallel. But with a Fender style tremolo system, like a vintage or 2-point fulcrum where the cavity is not recessed, you want to have some angle so that you can also go back. But please do this first, and when you're pretty much satisfied with the up and down headroom, then proceed with the final adjustment of the saddles for the action. Because, like I said, if you first do this and, for example, your bridge is like this and your action is now perfect, but now you want to proceed with the angle adjustment, you're ruining it because you're raising the action. Or consequently, if you adjust the action here and then you want to lower the angle, you're lowering the action and you'll have fret buzz and whatever. So make sure you also pay attention to that. And I'll just end it right here and right now. Until next time, guys. See ya. Yeah, going psycho at the very end as usual. Not good for you, because for me it is.